Welcome back to Cryptid Watch. Across North America, from the misty rivers of Massachusetts to the frozen swamps of Wisconsin, people have seen, heard, and felt something that defies explanation. Something massive, intelligent, watching. Tonight, we dive deep into 5 never-before-heard true encounters from ordinary people who came face to face with the extraordinary. These are not campfire tales. These are real Bigfoot encounters. So turn down the lights and listen closely. Because out there, in the dark, something's listening too. The Thing on the County Road, My Dad's Encounter, 1950s.
My dad grew up in a hard time and a harder place. Back in the 1950s, deep in rural coal country, far from any decent-sized town. The mines had already shut down, the jobs were gone, and families were just trying to survive off the land. He learned to hunt, fish, and live by instinct, because if he didn't eat. One night, he was walking a lonely gravel road that cut through open pasture land, a place I've driven myself years later, and can confirm there's nothing out there, no houses, no lights, just miles of rolling dark. He said he might have been headed into town to catch a movie at the theater, though he wasn't certain anymore. What he did remember clearly was how pitch black that night was. No moon, no stars, just the sound of his own footsteps crunching the gravel. And then, it happened. Something burst out of the darkness and crossed the road right in front of him. Before he could react, it started circling him, growling, snarling. The sound was low, powerful, and close, too close. He said the hair on the back of his head stood straight up and every survival instinct he had kicked in. He dropped down and started grabbing rocks, big ones, and throwing them as hard as he could in every direction. He couldn't see the thing, only hear it moving, growling, pacing around him in the dark. He said it sounded large, confident, like a predator that knew it had the advantage. He didn't know if any of the rocks hit it, but the commotion must have scared it off because eventually the sound stopped. Silence fell again, heavy and absolute. He never saw it, never heard it run. But he was sure of one thing. Whatever it wasn't a coyote and it wasn't a mountain lion. He knew those sounds by heart. This was something different, something that wanted him gone. That night haunted him for the rest of his life. The Barn Encounter. My uncle's story. Years later, my dad's brother-in-law, my uncle, had his own brush with the unknown, not far from that same stretch of road. He ran a small boot and saddle shop, and one evening after work he drove out to his pasture to check on a cow that was due to calf. There was an old barn on the property. No electricity, no lights, nothing. When he pulled up, he left his truck running and the headlights shining into the open doorway. But the way the barn was built, the lights couldn't reach all the way to the back. Half of it stayed cloaked in darkness. He walked inside, calling softly to the cow. She was still there, heavy with calf. He took a few steps deeper into the barn, and then froze. A deep, guttural growl rolled out from the dark. Not a cat, not a dog, not anything he'd ever heard before. He said the sound was so powerful it vibrated in his chest. Whatever it was close. And it wasn't bluffing. He knew he had left his rifle in the truck, but he also knew better than to make a run for it. So he backed away slowly, eyes locked on the shadows, until he was out in the open again. He climbed into his pickup, slammed the door, and sat there for a moment, heart hammering, headlights pointed straight at the barn. But he couldn't see a thing. He told me later, "You can't fight what you can't see. Out there in the dark, that thing could see me clear as day, but I couldn't see it at all." He never went back inside that barn after dark again. The cow survived and gave birth a few days later. But whatever had been in there that night was long gone. Neither of them, my dad or my uncle, ever figured out what those things were. But both men, tough as they came, believed something big and unexplainable was roaming those hills back then. And judging by the look in their eyes when they talked about it, I believed them.
Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more exclusive Bigfoot and other mystery animal stories. My second encounter, the Kalamazoo River creature, 1985.
It was late summer 1985. I was in my early 20s, and that night I was supposed to meet up with a few friends at a spot we called The Tree. A quiet hangout down by the Kalamazoo River where we'd build a fire, drink a few beers, and watch the sun go down. I'd finished supper and headed out just before evening. The air was still warm, the kind of golden light that makes everything look peaceful. I got there around 7 o'clock, but no one else had shown up yet. So I did what we always did. I started gathering firewood. After about an hour of collecting logs and branches, I decided to take a break. There was an old oak tree there, massive, split in half by lightning years earlier. One half had fallen across the river, making a natural bridge to the other side. I climbed out on that fallen trunk and just sat there for a while, watching the water move beneath me. The sun was dipping just above the tree line, painting the whole forest gold. It was quiet, too quiet, but beautiful. After a while, I realized it was getting dark, and still none of my friends had shown up. I figured I'd been stood up for the night, so I walked back to shore over by the big split oak to take a leak before heading out. That's when everything changed. Right in the middle of it, I suddenly got this feeling like a charge in the air, like something was watching me. The hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. I froze, stopped what I was doing, and turned slowly toward the game trail behind me. And there it was, standing maybe 20 to 30 feet away, a massive, dark, upright figure. It was broad across the shoulders, covered in dark hair, and its head sat low, almost directly on its shoulders, at no visible neck. It was standing next to a dead tree, just watching me. At first, I didn't believe what I was seeing. My brain was trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a stump or a shadow or something ordinary. So I took a few steps toward it, and as I did, it stepped back. Same number of steps. That's when fear really hit me. I backed up again to where I'd been standing, and it came forward, returning to its original spot. Then I heard it snap. A thick stick breaking under its foot. That sound hit me harder than anything else. It made it real. Whatever I was looking at wasn't a shadow. It was solid, alive. I don't know how long I stood there staring. Time seemed to just slip away. The sun had been on top of the trees when I first saw it, but by the time I came to my senses, it was nearly dark. Finally, instinct took over. I turned and ran. I sprinted up the hill toward the railroad tracks, not daring to look back. When I reached the top, my lungs were burning, and the forest behind me was swallowed in shadow. To this day, I can't explain what I saw. It wasn't a man, it wasn't a bear, it was something else. Something huge, powerful, and watching me with intelligence in its eyes. That was my second encounter with what I can only describe as a Bigfoot-type creature. And the strangest part? I don't remember how long I stood there. It was like time itself stopped while that thing stared right through me.
The River Path Encounter, Massachusetts.
It happened back in my hometown in Massachusetts, a place I knew like the back of my hand. My friend and I were walking one evening along a narrow path beside the river. It was late, cool, and quiet, the kind of night when even the crickets seem to hush every so often, like they're listening for something. The trail wound along the edge of a shallow, swampy stretch of the river. The moonlight barely filtered through the trees, and our flashlights, old, dim ones, only lit up about 20 or 30 feet ahead of us. We were talking, laughing a little, not thinking much about anything, when out of nowhere the night exploded. A roar ripped through the air, deep, guttural, powerful. You didn't just hear it, you felt it in your chest. It came from somewhere near the water, close enough that we could tell whatever made it was big. We both froze. Our flashlights shook in our hands as we pointed them toward the sound, and then we saw it. 2 massive yellow eyes glowing back at us from the darkness, maybe 30 feet away. It looked like it was crouched low, half hidden among the reeds and mud. We couldn't make out a body, just those eyes, unblinking, locked onto us. We stood there, trying to figure out what we were looking at, when a second set of eyes appeared, just a few feet beside the first. That was all it took. We didn't wait to see what else might show up. We turned and ran. Neither of us said a word until we were halfway back to town. When we finally stopped, out of breath, hearts pounding, we just looked at each other, and we both knew. Whatever that was back there, it wasn't anything we'd ever seen before.
The Night Whoops, north-central Wisconsin.
I live out in north-central Wisconsin. Deep woods, long winters, endless swamps. It's quiet country, the kind of place where you get used to the sounds of the night. I work the night shift, so I'm no stranger to being up when the rest of the world's asleep. I've heard coyotes, owls, frogs, you name it. I thought I knew every sound the forest could make. But one night changed that. It was late, sometime after midnight. I'd stepped outside for a smoke, standing behind my house near the edge of the swamp. The air was still, heavy with mist. Then out of nowhere, I heard it. A whoop. Long, low, and echoing from deep in the swamp. At first I thought it had to be an owl, or maybe some kind of bird. But then it came again, and again. Sometimes one, sometimes two or three together, echoing from different directions, like there was more than one out there. The sounds went on and off for over an hour and a half. I just stood there, listening, trying to convince myself I was hearing something normal. But nothing I've ever heard in these woods sounds like that. It wasn't coyote yips. It wasn't owls calling. It was different, powerful, human-like, but not human. I'll be honest. It sent chills straight down my spine. I finally went back inside, locked the door, and couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. Before that night, I didn't believe in Bigfoot. Not really. But after hearing those whoops, after feeling that deep vibration in the air that night, I can't explain it any other way. Since then, I've had a couple more strange things happen out here. Knocks in the woods, movement when there shouldn't be any, that feeling of being watched. Something's out there in those Wisconsin swamps. I don't know what it is, but I believe now.
What do you think? Were these just tricks of the light, or proof that something unknown still walks the wild places of our world? If you've ever had your own strange experience, footsteps in the dark, a sound you couldn't explain, share it in the comments below. Click here for our Cryptids playlist. Thanks to our sponsors, Mid-Devon Web Design. Support the channel by choosing them for all your web design, hosting, SEO, branding, and video needs. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next night of mystery. Until then, keep your fire burning bright and your face to the trees.